Surprisingly, the Western media continue to persistently call the 3rd Separate Assault Brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine elite reserves of the Ukrainian army, which should prevent the Russian army from establishing control over Avdiivka. Let me remind you that this elite brigade is the same AZOV Regiment that was reincarnated by the KYIV regime after its crushing defeat in Mariupol. This elite brigade includes ardent nationalists of the AZOV Regiment, who were lucky enough to stay alive in the battles for Mariupol and Bakhmut. However, judging by what is happening in Avdiivka, these ardent nationalists will soon cease to exist. So, on February 16, the Chief of Staff of the AZOV Regiment, Major and ardent nationalist, Bogdan Krotovich, didn't mince words during a radio conversation with the command of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. According to him, the Azov militants have fallen into a real hell, and that the Russians continue to advance with huge forces. Later, he accused the Ukrainian command of betrayal, as it continues to send Azov militants on suicidal frontal attacks on Russian positions. According to him, it is impossible to fight with the Russian army using frontal attacks. Against this background, the AZOV Regiment spokesman, Alexander Borodin, officially admitted that the fighters of the above-mentioned regiment were forced to flee from the Zenit and Cheburashka strongholds, in the east of Avdiivka. However, Ukrainian war correspondent Andriy Tsaplienko immediately denied this statement. According to him, the Azov fighters failed to leave these fortified areas, and were completely destroyed by Russian troops. Moreover, the Russians also managed to enter the intersection of Industrial Avenue, as well as reach the road leading to the village of Lastikino. Later, Russian troops planted the Russian flag at the entrance to Avdiivka. However, the bad news for the KYIV regime did not end there. As it turned out, the Azov militants were also forced to flee en masse towards the high-rise buildings of the Khimik microdistrict, as a result of which the Russian army took control of the Donetsk filtration station. Moreover, war correspondents also reported on the successes of Russian troops in the north of Avdiivka. In particular, inputs was confirmed that the Russians managed to take control of several buildings of the Avdiivka coke plant. In particular, we are talking about the office complex of this plant, in its southeastern part. Against this background, American experts from the Institute for the Study of War, seeing how the Russian army takes control of the most well-fortified city in Europe, the defense of which was created over 10 years with the help of NATO and Pentagon generals, made an ambiguous statement that angered even Western analysts and military experts. In particular, American experts said that the battle for Avdiivka proved that the Russian army was not capable of successfully encircling and capturing Ukrainian cities. Moreover, American experts also added that the capture of Avdiivka would not be considered an operational and strategic victory for Russia, and would have only an informational success. After hearing this, even many Western analysts were shocked, saying that such statements cast doubt on the professionalism and impartiality of American experts from the Institute for the Study of War. Meanwhile, seeing the controversial decisions of the new commander-in-chief, Ukrainian telegram channels began to seriously declare that General Sersky is not only a butcher, but also General Gerasimov's agent. In particular, they drew attention to the fact that General Sersky immediately threw the 3rd Elite Separate Assault Brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine into an operational encirclement, preventing the Azov militants from taking advantageous positions, as a result of which the Ukrainian nationalists lost a large amount of manpower and heavy equipment. Ukrainian telegram channels and bloggers still do not understand Why General Sersky continues to send the best fighters of the armed forces of Ukraine to slaughter, knowing in advance that they will not be able to save Avdiivka.
Well, my friends, it seems that these Ukrainian Telegram channels and bloggers do not understand that General Sersky, unlike Zelensky, is completely subordinate to President Zelensky and afraid to disobey him.
And the decision to throw the last reserves of the Ukrainian army into battle comes exclusively from this comedy actor, who, for the sake of his political and image goals, is ready to sacrifice all the remaining units of the armed forces of Ukraine.